Welcome to the Wax Room Confessional, where the wax is hot, the tea is hotter, and nothing stays surface level for long. I am your host, Nicole, esthetician and trauma-informed empowerment coach. In here, we talk about it all, from Brazilian waxes to body shame, from self-love to stretch marks, and yes, even the things people confess mid-wax. But this podcast isn't just about client confessions. It's a space for education, for anyone curious about waxing, skincare, or what actually goes on behind that closed door. And it's a space for mentorship, for beauty pros and wellness practitioners who want to hold space with more care, compassion, and authenticity. After 2 years of building authenticity wellness and 21 years in the industry, I've realized that the work that I do isn't about the services, it's about the transformation. And now I'm opening the door to my wax suite. Welcome to the confessional. Let's peel back the layers together. Welcome to Wax Room Confessional. I am Nicole. This is episode number 1, confession number 1. It's just hair, or is it? Today we're going to explore shame, self-image, and the emotional stories that are hidden in your body. Now, I'm going to start off this podcast solo today, just because this podcast has been a dream that's been held close to my heart for years. Today, I finally get to open the doors to the world and invite you into one of the most sacred spaces that I've ever known, which is my wax room. This space is shared in tears, truth, joy, and transformation. My clients come in for beauty, but they leave feeling lighter emotionally, spiritually, and so do I. I have always said that it's never just about the hair, it's actually about what we're ready to let go of. And so here I hold space not just for bodies, but for stories. And in season 1, we're going to be peeling back all of those layers. You're going to hear from some of my clients, some of my friends, and people who have healed in the most unexpected ways, right here in my room on this table. People who have held space for me in my healing journey and in my career. They've come into my world through the door of waxing, but they live in my soul through the door of vulnerability and grace. Today, I'm going to start by sharing a little bit about my own story, which you're going to hear all throughout season 1 as I talk with my friends and share in conversations with my friends outside of the wax room in the confessional. But my first confession is that in 2020, I had a complete mental breakdown. My mind, body, and spirit were in crisis. I was exhausted and completely disconnected from myself. I was drowning in years of unprocessed trauma, unhealthy patterns that I had adopted, fear and perfectionism, and a lot of pain. I was battling with things like OCD, anxiety, depression, disordered eating, and I was at a complete identity collapse. That year became my rock bottom, and at the time, I really couldn't see a way out. But something in me had decided that I couldn't stay there. I had made a decision, not a perfect one, and it wasn't all at once, and there definitely was not a sudden fix. But I made one small choice after another to start showing up for myself again, to take back my health and to take back ownership of my life, to take my body, my mind, and my soul back under control. 6 months later, in September of 2020, I took a job at Waxing the City. This was after COVID and the world had shut down, and everything was just starting to open up, and people were able to go back to work again. And it may have looked like I was just going back to work like everyone else, but it was so much more than that. Because of my experience in March of 2020, returning to waxing became more of a way for me to reconnect with my purpose. It wasn't just about removing hair anymore. I was beginning to hold space for my clients. My clients were just walking in expecting to get serviced by somebody who's been in the industry a really long time. But what we ended up creating became something much deeper. Without them really knowing it, they witnessed my healing in real time. They helped me without even knowing that that's what they were doing. Some of the women that you're going to hear from on this podcast have been with me since those early days at Waxing the City. They watched me rise from the ashes, and they supported me through my coaching school and through building authenticity wellness. They've been with me through every messy, magical, beautiful step. And sometimes we reflect on the years that we spent together, and I call it season 5, episode 9, since we're in September. And we check in with each other every 4 weeks at their appointments, and it just became something really beautiful. Also, I grew up carrying the silent burden of childhood sexual abuse, and I had learned very early to disconnect from my body and to see it as a source of pain, shame, and secrecy. As I got older, I had internalized that trauma to where I really couldn't even look in the mirror without judging myself. I felt like I was at war in my own skin. My body was filled with anxiety, stored emotions that were begging to be felt. But at that time, I really didn't have any tools or safety to face them. Now, healing didn't happen all at once. It began very slowly through therapy with a lot of faith and tenderness of my chosen family, and most ironically, through my work. Helping others to feel comfortable in their skin eventually helped me to come home to mine. I've been just about every size. When I started my weight loss journey, I was a size 16 and weighing in at about 106 or 216 pounds, kind of bouncing between 220 pounds. And I've been broken down and I've rebuilt and I've fallen apart and I found my way back to myself again and again. And for most of my life, being overweight was one of the greatest sources of discomfort in my body. Comparison was the thief of my joy, and my body definitely mirrored back to me all the unresolved trauma that I had carried inside. After reading a book called The Body Keeps Score, I really began to understand that what I've been living for so long, all those memories and all that trauma, doesn't just live in the memories. It doesn't just live in our mind. It's actually stored in our body. And the weight that I was carrying, it wasn't just the physical manifestation, it was emotional armor. My body had been protecting itself and doing everything it could to keep me safe, even if it looked like illness, exhaustion, and extra pounds that I carried on my body. And I have learned through my journey that a lot of people who have been harmed and suffered childhood sexual abuse often carry a lot of extra weight and struggle with disordered eating. And most of my weight loss journey wasn't about the food or the exercise. It was really about facing the trauma that was hidden underneath my weight. Every symptom was a message that I needed to interpret. And once I began healing the roots through therapy, mindfulness, and radical self honesty, my body then began to respond and the weight began to come off. But the biggest wake up call was the overgrowth of candida in my body, which is a yeast that naturally lives in our gut, but it was out of balance and disrupted by things like antibiotics, sugar, stress, and it definitely weakened my immune system to the point where the symptoms became really overwhelming for me. It showed up in illness like chronic inflammation and led to nerve problems and eventually a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, which anybody who's been diagnosed with that, it's kind of a medical label that just means we're not exactly sure what's wrong with you, but we'll manage your symptoms with medication. And that's exactly what happened leading up to my breakdown in 2020. I was on 6 different medications, all treating the symptoms of my fibromyalgia. And what this looked like in my body was chronic yeast infections, sinus infections, painful intercourse, recurring UTIs, digestive problems, certainly uncontrollable cravings, food sensitivities, eczema, rashes, migraines, joint pain, fatigue, mood swings, anxiety, depression, and hormonal chaos. And unfortunately, I lived in that cycle for over a decade while raising my young children. It was exhausting and extremely isolating. But healing through food and mindfulness and making lifestyle changes gave me back my body. And it gave me the body that I was actually meant to live in, one that I could finally rest in and feel at home and begin the really deep work of healing. Now, it took me 5 years to get here to this moment today, and the journey, it became so much bigger than I had even realized it was ever going to be. Because here's what I ended up discovering. The more that I shared my story with my clients, the more my clients felt safe to share theirs. And that's where the sacred connection created this ripple effect of healing. And I realized what I'd been searching for all along was a safe space to heal. And that's exactly what I was being called to create for others. So I turned the mirror inward and I gave myself the same honesty and vulnerability and radical self-love that I'd been guiding others towards. And out of that came authenticity wellness. Authenticity wellness was born from my own need for healing. It became a sanctuary for so many others, and that's my reason why. And for the first time, I'm going to be sharing this publicly. And it feels like it's coming full circle for me because what started as survival ended up becoming my calling. And I went from coaching in the waxing suite to coaching in the real world. And what started as conversations in the wax suite eventually became so much more. My clients and I, we weren't just talking about hair removal. We were talking about life and body image, about boundaries and healing. A safe space naturally grew into coaching, and even before I started calling it coaching. But at the same time, simultaneously, I was struggling deep with my own mental health. Therapy had become a lifeline, and that's where I ended up meeting my mentor, Shannon, who saw something in me that I couldn't quite see, a passion to turn my pain into a purpose. Through her guidance and nonprofit, I've had the privilege of stepping out of the treatment room and into the community and now working alongside of other incredible men and women who are just as committed to their health and wellness as I am. Now, Shannon believed in me and she gave me the confidence to use my voice more boldly and to help others in finding their own hell yes and their own hell no, and to reconnect with their bodies and to own their truth. And I'd already been doing that for years in the wax suite. And that's when I ended up finding the synergy between what I do as an esthetician and what my desires are to do as a coach. And I've seen it as this ripple effect, passing on what was given to me. The healing isn't meant to stop with us. It's meant to flow through us back out and help others. And that's what our stories and testimonies are meant to do. And one of my favorite quotes is by Maya Angelou, and just the beginning part of it says, "When you know better, you do better." And that's the heart of all of this. The more I heal, the more I can help others do the same. Now, don't get me wrong, this podcast might make you cry, but it's also going to make you laugh. Because when my friends are on here, one of the ways that we like to cope with life is dark humor. And we definitely share a lot of tears and a lot of laughter in my wax suite. And I really want that to shine through. Now, the relationship that I have with my clients are very sacred, and what happens in the wax suite is often going to stay in the wax suite. But let's be real, because some stories are just too good and too human and too real not to share. They're the kind of moments that remind us that we're all in this life together, learning and embracing the fullness of life, even when it's awkward or hilarious and sometimes takes unexpected turns. Brene Brown says that authenticity is having the courage to be yourself. And that's exactly what happens behind those closed doors. My clients get to show up exactly as they are, and I have the privilege of showing up exactly how I am. And from that honesty is where the magic happens. Sometimes that magic is tearful, sometimes it's breakthroughs, and sometimes it's just belly laughs over the absurdities of life and hair removal. Because
in between the serious conversations about healing and empowerment, there's a whole lot of laughter, and that is also healing. My clients believe in me, and I believe in them, and together we've created a space where authenticity thrives. So I'm honored to open the door just a crack and invite you into the world of the waxing suite, where we cry, we laugh, but most of all, we live out our hell yes. And the Wax Room Confessional was born because I wanted to tell the truth about what happens behind the wax room door. I get all kinds of questions when people find out what I do for a living, and some of them are absolutely hilarious. Some are a little bit insulting. So we will scream, we will laugh, we may even talk about some exes. Definitely going to talk about body hair and some really weird dreams because I have plenty of them. But we're going to cry, we're going to confess, and we're going to heal together because there is so much wisdom in the client provider relationship. I've learned this as my years as a waxer and also as the years behind the chair doing hair. And I have clients who are bartenders, clients who are massage therapists, and all kinds of other professions where you have this client provider relationship. And there's magic in women and men holding space for each other in the most unexpected places. And there's power in what gets revealed when we feel safe and when the clothes come off and the door closes. This podcast really is a love letter to my clients and to the beauty industry that has shaped me and helped me become the woman that I am because of both of them. After 21 years in the beauty industry, I am transitioning. I'm wanting to move towards full time coaching, teaching, and hosting wellness events through Authenticity Wellness and continue my partnership with the nonprofit Inside Out for Everyone and Changing Lives Coaching. But before I go, I wanted to leave something behind, something that honors the sacred relationships that are built between estheticians and their clients, or hairdressers and their clients, barbers and their clients, massage therapists, and something that can bridge beauty and healing together, skin and the soul. I wanted something that can educate, uplift, and empower, whether you're a client, a potential client, a fellow esthetician, or someone beginning to come home to their body again. I hope that there's something inside of this podcast for all of you. Over the next season, you're going to get to hear from some of my clients, some of their confessions, their raw stories, some of our hilarious moments together, and most of all, powerful lessons that I've learned from 21 years of stripping more than just hair. You're going to hear from women that I've waxed for years, guests who've changed my life, and peers in the industry who have so much heart and wisdom to share. This is not just for entertainment, though. This is education, mentorship, and this is what healing out loud looks like. I want to first of all thank my clients. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for witnessing me truly and for letting me witness you. You are the reason that this exists. And to anyone listening, if you've ever felt like your body was too much or not enough, if you've ever wanted to be seen without also trying to be fixed, if you've ever needed someone to hold space while you shed something heavy, then this space is for you. So, welcome to the Wax Room Confessional. Let's peel back the layers together.